The anime begins by introducing Emma, Norman, and Ray, three exceptionally smart orphans who live a happy life at Gracefield House with 35 other children. Every morning, they have breakfast with their kind caretaker, Isabella, who they call Mom. After breakfast, the children take tests, and Emma, Norman, and Ray always get perfect scores. Later, they play tag in the large fields and forests around their home. During the game, Norman disappears into the woods, and Emma finds him by a low fence at the edge of the forest, thinking about the world outside. The children dream about the day they will be adopted and leave the home. That same day, a younger child named Connie is set to be adopted. After a joyful day, she says a tearful goodbye to her family at Gracefield House and leaves with Isabella. Later, while cleaning up, Emma finds Connie's favorite stuffed toy, Little Bunny, left behind. Wanting to make sure Connie has her toy, Emma, with Norman, rushes to return it. At the gate, they find a truck and decide to leave the bunny there for Connie. But when Emma goes to place the toy, she finds Connie's lifeless body. Hearing voices, they hide under the truck and listen to monsters talking about how the children are raised as high-quality food for rich demons. When one of the monsters calls Mom to confirm the delivery of the goods, Emma and Norman realize the terrible truth of their situation. Their peaceful life is shattered as they learn that Gracefield House is actually a farm where humans are raised to be eaten by demons. They manage to escape back to the house under the cover of night. Once home, Norman suggests they escape, but Emma is hesitant, not wanting to leave the others behind. Meanwhile, Isabella finds the toy near the truck, and when Emma sees her, she tries to hide her fear. Norman advises her to keep smiling and pretend everything is normal. Although Isabella knows someone tried to return the toy, she doesn't know who it was. During playtime, Emma and Norman decide that escaping through the forest is their best option. However, when they climb over a small fence, they find a tall, unbroken concrete wall blocking their way. Things get more serious when a young girl goes missing, but Mama quickly finds her just by looking at her watch, suggesting the children have some kind of tracking device. Later, while Emma is sad about Connie, Mama approaches her, asking why she's been so quiet lately. Ray saves the situation by ringing the dinner bell, distracting Mama. But as Emma and Norman leave, Mama directly asks if they were at the gate last night. They calmly deny it, saying they followed the rules, but Mama remains suspicious. Once alone, Emma and Norman realize they need an escape plan quickly. Their plan involves hiding tablecloths in a tree near the wall to make a rope for their escape. They have 2 months before another child is set to leave. While checking out the wall, their friend Ray follows them and demands to know what they're up to. Surprisingly, Ray believes them without question, trusts Norman, and agrees to help with the escape. But Emma insists that all 37 children must escape, which complicates things. Meanwhile, Isabella introduces a new baby named Carol and a helper, Sister Crone, who secretly wants to replace Isabella. This makes their escape even more challenging. As they plan, Emma examines Carol and finds a small red bump behind her ear, figuring it's where the tracking device is located. They realize that messing with the devices is too risky and might trigger alarms. So, they decide to use a game of tag to train the children for the escape, with Emma leading the physical training and Norman and Ray teaching survival skills. Meanwhile, Sister Crone becomes suspicious and wants to speed up their shipment to take Isabella's place by accusing her of failing to do her job. Norman and Ray also start to suspect there is a traitor among them. Sister Crone, promised a promotion by Isabella if she cooperates, secretly plots to overthrow Isabella instead of waiting for her turn. As they continue their preparations, Emma, Norman, and Ray work on their escape plan by pretending to play tag, with the older children guiding the younger ones. They start to suspect that there might be a traitor among them, focusing on Gilda and Dawn. That night, the three decide to tell Dawn and Gilda about their escape plan, but Norman chooses not to tell them that Connie is dead. Instead, he says the children who left were victims of human trafficking, thinking the truth about their deaths would be too much for them to handle. Gilda and Dawn agree that escaping is their best option. However, Ray is unhappy with Norman's decision to hide the full danger from them, believing everyone should know the whole truth. To test their loyalty, Norman gives Gilda and Dawn false information about where the escape ropes are hidden. That night, while pretending to sleep, Emma sees Gilda quietly leaving the room. Unbeknownst to Emma, a note revealing the rope's location under Norman's bed is slipped under Isabella's door. Curious about Gilda's actions, Emma listens outside Sister Crone's room, where Gilda has gone. The tension rises as it's unclear if Gilda will betray their plan to Sister Crone. In the end, Gilda keeps the secret, just as Emma had hoped. Meanwhile, Norman and Ray check the hiding spots for the rope. Norman finds nothing under the bed, and Ray assumes Don must be the traitor. But Norman starts to suspect Ray, realizing he was the only other person who knew about the rope's location. Ray admits to his actions, but argues that they were necessary. Norman agrees to forgive him, but only if Ray agrees to act as his spy. Ray accepts, but he insists that they trick Emma into believing they plan to escape without Gilda and Don, arguing that the younger children would slow them down and hurt their chances of survival. Ray later meets with Isabella, misleading her into thinking Sister Crone is the main threat and revealing that the children are still using the game of tag to practice escaping. He then confesses to Emma that he has been working as Isabella's informant. Feeling left out of the main group's discussions, Gilda and Emma start watching Isabella more closely. During this time, Emma finds a hidden room in Isabella's quarters. Dawn, still not knowing what happened to Connie, is determined to save her and insists on investigating further. Despite Ray and Norman's warnings, Dawn and Gilda discover a locked door behind a bookshelf in Isabella's room. Dawn's impatience drives him to steal Isabella's key, increasing the danger for both him and Gilda. As they search for answers, Norman, Gilda, and Ray explore the library and find books with plates marked by Mr. William Minerva and messages in Morse code. They hope decoding these messages will give them important information about resisting the demons and possibly show that other humans are also fighting back, giving the children a small sense of hope. When Dawn and Gilda search deeper into Mama's private quarters, they find a collection of toys and stuffed animals, which confirms Norman's suspicions about the adults and raises even darker questions. After Norman and Ray scold them for being reckless, Dawn and Gilda confront them about not telling them the whole truth. Norman finally reveals the full, grim reality of their situation, leaving them shocked. As part of their plan, Dawn and Gilda secretly gather materials, which Ray falsely reports to Mama as part of Norman's supposed plan to kill her. Norman then tells Emma that they're using Ray to give Mama false information to distract her during their escape. While reporting to Isabella, Ray learns that he is scheduled for the January shipment, meaning they have little time left to escape. The children's plan is nearly exposed when Sister Crone suddenly reveals that she knows what they're up to, but instead of threatening them, she offers to join forces with them. That evening, Emma and Norman talk to Sister Crone, suspecting she is hiding something important. Meanwhile, Isabella rewards Ray with an instant camera for his cooperation. However, Sister Crone's situation quickly changes when Mama tells her she's being reassigned as the new mom at Plant 4 and must leave immediately. When Sister Crone tries to use her knowledge of the escape plan to gain favor with Grandma, she is dismissed and shockingly ordered to be executed. Isabella, after discovering Ray's betrayal, quickly ends their deal. She locks him up and uses her tracking device to find Norman and Emma. Seeing Isabella leave, Dawn breaks into the house, frees Ray, and they rush to help Norman and Emma. When Mama confronts Norman and Emma, she drops the kind act she has kept up for years and shows them her true feelings. She begs them to accept their fate, but when they refuse, she violently injures Emma, then calmly bandages her wound before taking her back to the house. Isabella then tells Norman that his shipment is scheduled. The group decides to disable Norman's tracker and wait for Emma to recover so they can all escape together, despite Norman suggesting they escape later. Norman agrees, and the next morning, he climbs the wall with a rope they made. On the other side, he finds a large forest, but a huge cliff separates them from it. Norman mentions that there is a possible escape route through the headquarters, which is connected by a bridge over the cliff, but he says he cannot join them. As Norman prepares to leave, the children are deeply emotional, especially Emma. She tries to give him a device to disable the trackers, but Norman returns it, encouraging her to keep fighting. Norman's farewell is heartbreaking, and everyone is shaken, holding on to the small hope he has given them. Norman and Mama walk to the gate, where she tells him to wait in her room, his last appearance. Emma and Ray are devastated by Norman's departure and struggle to move on, even though Dawn and Gilda try to support them. Exhausted, Ray says he no longer cares, leaving Emma and the others to decide what to do next. Emma's sadness is noticed by both the children and Mama as the day of Ray's shipment approaches. Emma finds Ray in the chapel, where they both admit they pretended to give up hope to trick Mama. They talk about their escape plan, which involves setting the house on fire. Ray shocks Emma by pouring oil on himself, showing that he is willing to sacrifice himself to distract Isabella so the others can escape. As the clock strikes midnight, Ray, now 12 years old, starts a fire. Emma quickly runs to him, but soon a loud scream fills the air. Isabella rushes to the scene, finding Emma on the ground, desperately calling for Ray. Isabella checks her radar and sees that Ray is in the middle of the flames, so she tries to save him, especially his brain. She tells Emma to run away, but when she looks back, Emma is gone. Isabella's radar shows only Emma's signal, which she finds next to Emma's severed ear in the bathroom. Meanwhile, Emma meets up with the other orphans in the forest. Dawn explains to Ray how Gilda and Emma had brought the older orphans into their escape plan. Ray recalls Emma stopping him from his destructive act and remembers their plan using meat, Anna's cut hair, and Ray's clothes in the cafeteria. Emma reveals that Norman had warned her about Ray's plan to sacrifice himself, allowing them to prepare a counterplan. As the orphans flee, Isabella, holding the communication device, watches the house burn and laughs, certain that she'll catch them all. But she's surprised when Phil pulls on her dress. As the children start to climb the wall, Emma tells Ray about a change in their escape plan. The youngest children, those 4 and under, will stay behind for now, with a promise that they'll come back for them and others in different places. Phil, who understands the tough reality after seeing what happened to the others, stays with Isabella as part of the plan. Without Ray or Mama knowing, the orphans avoid the obvious escape route over the bridge. Instead, Don throws a stone across a narrower part of the cliff and loops a rope around a tree. He then ziplines across and secures the rope for the others to follow. The other children cleverly use water rockets to cross the gap. Meanwhile, Phil distracts Mama just long enough to delay her from sounding the alarm. When Mama finally triggers it, the monsters rush to the bridge, but by the time she realizes the children aren't there, only Emma is left. Emma exchanges a final look with the woman she once called Mama, says goodbye, and ziplines to safety. In a surprising twist, it's revealed that Ray is Isabella's son. Despite her defeat, Isabella watches with a sense of pride, admiring the cleverness of her children and wishing them well as they go beyond the wall and cliff. Emma, Ray, and their friends from Gracefield House, now free, begin their journey to find a safe place. Ray discovers a hidden Morse code in a pin, and when Gilda enters a password, a message from Mr. Minerva appears, guiding them to a safe location. They all thank Norman for leaving them the pin that is now helping them find safety. Meanwhile, demons are searching the area to capture the escaped children. As night falls, a fierce demon chases the children in the forest. Dawn and Gilda signal the group to split up. In the chaos, a wild demon gets caught in a tree branch, giving the children a moment to breathe. The trio then encounters a dangerous trap called the Snakes of Alpinera, a web of vines that's nearly impossible to escape. Ray decides to lure the demon into this trap, starting his risky plan. But before Ray can complete his plan, hunters arrive on their trail. To avoid capture, Ray tricks the hunters by claiming he is the only survivor. A whistle sounds in the distance, signaling that the hunters have found another child. Emma offers to check it out, telling the others to keep running. Unfortunately, as she leaves, her old ear wound reopens and she collapses, and quickly helps her as a mysterious figure leads them to safety. Meanwhile, Ray manages to escape his pursuers but eventually collapses, exhausted and trapped. Surprisingly, he is rescued and later wakes up by a lantern in a simple bed. He's relieved to see Emma nearby. They reunite, and as they think about being saved by Mr. Minerva's allies, the masked woman who had cared for them checks on Emma. They are taken to dinner, where Ray realizes something shocking: their rescuers are demons who don't know Mr. Minerva. This discovery stuns Emma and Ray, and Emma starts to worry, fearing the worst for their siblings. She even suspects that Mujika might have served them as food. Without saying anything, Mujika stays quiet while Sanju gives Emma a chance to escape. Ray quickly follows her. Soon after, Sanju and Mujika catch up and apologize to Emma for not telling the full truth. Emma also apologizes and thanks them for saving the other children. Later, when everyone else is asleep, Emma and Ray search for answers. They ask why Sanju and Mujika didn't eat them. Sanju explains that their religion forbids it. Curious about the history of humans, the children look at books written by Mr. Minerva and ask about the last 30 years. Sanju reveals that humans haven't been free for 1,000 years, having been turned into livestock after a pact was made during a war between humans and demons. He explains that this pact stopped humans from hunting demons in exchange for demons not eating humans. To seal the pact, some humans were given as livestock. This agreement created a division between the human and demon worlds, trapping the livestock children in the demon world. Sanju gives the children directions to their next destination, explaining that it will take 6 days to get there. During the journey, Majika teaches them about herbs and foraging, while Sanju shows them survival skills like making maps, using bows and arrows, and finding resources. After 6 days, they arrive at the shelter. Before saying goodbye, Majika gives Emma an amulet for protection. When they enter the shelter, Emma turns on the lights and finds it empty. However, she discovers a letter from Mr. Minerva, saying the shelter was made for children. Ray finds a radio in the monitoring room that broadcasts normal activities from plants 1 and 4. Emma and the others listen to the radio outside. In a secret room, a ringing phone leads Emma to answer a call from Mr. Minerva, but Ray explains it's just a recording. In the recording, Mr. Minerva explains why he set up the shelter. He couldn't bear to see so many children sacrificed to demons, so he secretly created a safe place for them. He leaves a map for those who want to travel to the human world. As the recording ends, an explosion cuts off the shelter's power, and 2 guards are knocked out. Armed intruders break in, searching for the children, who escape into caves beneath the shelter. While trying to avoid the intruders, the attackers drop in through holes in the ceiling. Emma and Ray manage to push one intruder down and find another way out. Once outside, they regroup and lead the children toward the forest, but they are cornered by armed soldiers ready to shoot. Suddenly, the demon they had met earlier appears and kills the soldiers. Ray shoots the demon in the eye, making it angry, and it starts chasing them again, forcing the children to run into the dark forest. Inside the prison, a demon holds a deadly flower, thinking about using it on Isabella. During a heated argument with his superiors about what to do with her, he decides to make a deal. He promises Isabella her freedom and a big reward if she brings back all the children, whether they are alive or dead. After the attack on the shelter, some children, disguised as demons, sneak into a nearby village. Pretending to do business, they see that most of the villagers are poor and angry, suffering because the aristocrats control almost all the human flesh. Nearby, in an abandoned temple, the children set up a temporary hideout. Here, Emma and Ray discuss what to do next after the attack. The next morning, Toma and another child, dressed as demons, ask Emma if they can go with her to the village. At first, Emma doesn't want them to go, but she agrees when Don decides to go with them. Suddenly, an old demon, who is blind and doesn't realize they are children, thinks they are young demons passing by. He prays for them and hopes the village will recover before he leaves. In the village slums, 2 demons notice their relatives getting sicker and fear they won't survive much longer. One demon suggests that the children who escaped from Gracefield House might still be nearby. They think that capturing and eating the children alive could save their sick relative. Meanwhile, in the woods, Tomas shows how they use a slingshot to catch slippery fish. Afterward, they come up with a plan to bring Emma to the village, pretending they need to buy spices. However, when they reach the market, they accidentally run into the very demons who were chasing them. After a quick and awkward conversation, the demons, thinking there might be human meat, are surprised to find only fish. This starts a frantic chase through the village streets. From a rooftop, Emma and Ray see the chase before they, too, are pursued by another group of demons. They manage to lose their pursuers, but are then trapped by the first pair of demons. Just in time, another group shows up with swords, arguing against killing Emma and Ray. Suddenly, another demon appears and quickly kills them, shocking Emma and Ray. As they prepare for the worst, the demon reveals himself by saying Emma's name, and they are stunned to realize it's Norman. Back at the ruins, Dawn, Gilda, and the others are also shocked to see Norman again. Norman tells them about his terrible experience at Lambda 7214, where he was not only a sacrificial victim but also saw many experiments done on children and endured many tests himself. With help from Mr. Minerva, Norman escaped and later created a serum that could turn demons back to their primitive forms. He started producing this serum in large quantities to wipe out demons and create a world where humans could live without fear. Many support his plan, but Emma has doubts. She doesn't want to continue the cycle of violence that the demons started and hopes for a peaceful solution, even if it seems impossible. Meanwhile, in the forest, Ray finds a hideout that Norman had mentioned. They are welcomed by Sislo, Barbara, and Vincent, who are Norman's adult allies. They tell them that Norman will return soon. When Norman arrives, he introduces the serum, but Ray informs him that some demons are immune to it. This news surprises Norman and makes him angry when he learns that the demons they encountered earlier are still alive. Norman becomes especially upset when he hears Majika's name. He remembers her history, dating back 700 years, when she was seen as a savior of an oppressed community. Majika had the special ability to turn anyone into a demon who wouldn't eat humans, just by mixing her blood with theirs. She could even create demons like herself. Her powers became famous across the demon world, leading to a time of prosperity. But when the king found out, he ordered a mass killing of those with Majika's blood to keep control and prevent a rebellion. This action sparked the human-demon conflict known as the Promise. Over time, Majika disappeared, hiding to avoid capture. Frustrated, Norman criticizes Emma's idealistic views and insists that Majika and Sanju must be eliminated because they threaten his plan, despite Emma's objections. After being sent away, all the entry points to the human world were destroyed. Mr. Minerva and his allies were killed, leaving Gracefield House as the only portal to the human world, buried deep under its foundation. Desperate, Emma suggests finding Sanju and Majika within a week to stop Norman's plan. After a tense discussion, Norman reluctantly agrees to give them just 5 days to succeed. Meanwhile, Elsie continues with his plan. After seeing his friends off, he goes down to the basement, saying he will start the massacre once they return with the two demons. Dawn and Gilda join Emma and Ray in their search for Majika and Sanju, intending to bring them to Norman to keep them safe. However, back at headquarters, Norman has a severe coughing fit that brings back memories of the night he was taken away. At a special facility, he was greeted by a man named Peter who, instead of sacrificing him, asked for his help in research. During his time there, Norman went through many tests, which he passed. While his friends faced cruel experiments, Norman came up with an escape plan using explosives hidden in a ball he made. The plan worked, allowing him and some survivors, now under his leadership, to escape. They were given a pin by a man who later died from his injuries. In the present, in the forest, the group encounters a wild demon. Ray shoots it in the eye to stop it, and just as Emma is about to be eaten, Sanju appears and kills the demon. Excited to find Sanju and Majika, they try to take them to Norman. But their efforts fail as Norman and his team attack the village. They use a bomb that releases a drug that makes the demons go wild and attack each other. In the chaos, 2 sick young demons try to escape from their home, and Norman personally goes into the village to kill them. A young demon girl tries to run from Norman's attack, looking for her grandfather, the same old demon who always prayed for better days. When he arrives to find his village on fire, he frantically searches for his granddaughter. The drug affects her, turning her into a primal state, but he is unaffected because he has Majika's blood in him. He tries to confront the attackers. Seeing the destruction caused by his followers, Norman feels regret for a moment, but quickly hardens himself for the upcoming battle. Emma and Ray try to convince Norman that they can escape without killing the demons. Overcome by his past suffering and the tough choices he's made with little time left, Norman breaks down in tears in front of Emma. During this emotional moment, Majika arrives and gives a vial of her blood to a female demon, telling her to share it to stop the others from degenerating. Barbara, who was about to attack the demon, hesitates when she sees her own struggles reflected in them, causing her to get a bad headache. When Zazie tries to attack the demon, Norman steps in and stops him. Regaining her composure, Barbara says that Norman's well-being is more important than her desire for revenge. Seeing the 2 young demons, Majika offers them a vial of her blood before heading back to the temple. Back at the temple, Toma and Lanyon rush to Ray, panicking, to tell him that Phil and others are about to be shipped out. They don't know that it was a trap set by Rattray and the new grandma, Isabella. Rattray explains his plan to expand Lambert-style farms across the region, reducing the need for elite farms like Gracefield House. He agrees to keep some farms running for the demons to serve the common folk. Realizing that the shift to Lambert-style farming is coming soon, Norman, along with Emma, rushes to come up with a plan to rescue Phil and his group. even though Ray warns it might be a trap. A young demon girl gives Emma a piece of the legendary pin, which shows blueprints of Gracefield House and a recipe for an antidote to the side effects of the drugs given to Norman and his friends. Determined, Emma, Ray, Norman, and the other children decide to return to Gracefield House to save their friends. Meanwhile, during the night, Vincent secretly communicates with Gracefield House, with Isabella receiving the message. Emma, Ray, and Norman plan how to sneak into Gracefield House and save Phil and 119 other children. Their plan includes using hot air balloons to spread a drug that neutralizes demons over the farms. But they don't know that Vincent has betrayed their plan to Isabella, who strengthens the facility's security to stop the raid and capture Norman while getting rid of the others. Rattray approves the operation. At the same time, Phil, Simon, and other children at the farm are being prepared for shipment. As the children from Lambda 7214 begin their attack using the hot air balloons, it turns out that the balloons are decoys, set to explode on contact, allowing Sanji and Norman's team to start an aerial attack. They break into the facility and use smoke bombs to confuse the demons inside. Vincent hacks the system and mocks Rattray for falling into their trap. Watching through security cameras, the demons see Emma turn off the CCTV systems. With the lights out, Emma leads the children to the elevator, while Phil cleverly distracts the guards, causing them to miss their chance to capture the escaping group. They all meet at the elevator, but their reunion is cut short when the breeders point SMGs at them, with Isabella mockingly welcoming the children back. Rattray looks at the captured children and demands their surrender. Just as he is about to kill Emma, Isabella unexpectedly turns against him, pointing her gun at his back, with others following her lead. Even though he is surrounded and outnumbered, Rattray confidently believes his reinforcements will save him. However, the backup is taken out by the Demon Town's citizens, Majika, Sanju, and VYLK, who have risen up against the farms. VYLK bursts into the elevator area, declaring a rebellion against centuries of starvation and oppression caused by powerful demons and humans. Just as Isabella is about to shoot Rattray, he takes his own life with a knife, tormented by the guilt of killing his own brother, Mr. Minerva. With Rattray gone, the residents of Gracefield House finally reach the gateway to the human world. The gateway is a tree-like portal with Mr. Minerva's owl symbol on it. They insert the pin into one of the owl's eyes to open the door and step into a mysterious void. As the portal closes, Emma, Ray, and Norman decide to stay in the demon world, joining forces with Norman's allies to free their comrades who were left behind. Meanwhile, Don and Gilda choose to enter the human world with Isabella to take care of the younger children. Just as the doors begin to close, Phil runs to give Emma a final hug, promising to come back for them if they take too long. They arrive in New York City, where, unlike what they were told by both humans and demons, they are welcomed warmly. The children start living a normal life, going to school and dressing like other kids. In the demon world, the group travels through barren lands and mountains, rescuing children from what seem to be other farms. They eventually reach the capital. After crossing a war-torn battlefield, Majika gives her blood to other demons and is praised for her help. Many years later, in the human world, the children have grown up. Outside New York, Phil and Emma meet again, marking the completion of her mission. So the moral of the story is, if your mom is too nice, maybe start planning your escape, just in case she's secretly working for demons.